Hello, PMP warriors. This is Aileen. Let's talk about organizational structures. When we think about organizational structures, often we think about the functional structure, the matrices, and the projectized structure. Let's start at the left with the functional structure. When we describe this structure, often we think of it as a hierarchy. People are grouped by specialty. All the engineers work in an engineering group. All the marketing people work in a marketing group. People are clear who their supervisor is. There is one clear supervisor for each worker. We call it a hierarchy. The engineer would work for the engineering supervisor, who works for the engineering manager, etc. A big positive of a functional structure is for the worker who has just left school and started on their career. The worker, they are surrounded by people who have the skill set they are trying to develop. Let's move from the functional structure to the matrices. When we think about the matrices, there's a weak matrix, a balanced matrix, and a strong matrix. The weak matrix has many of the characteristics of a functional structure. The strong matrix, many of the characteristics of a projectized structure. If we move to the weak matrix, with this matrix, the project manager is borrowing resources, though the functional manager certainly is the manager with the power. Communication, reporting, many things are very complex in the weak matrix. The project manager is weaker than the functional manager. Sometimes the project manager isn't called a project manager at all. Often they have the role of a project coordinator. A project coordinator reports into a higher level manager, and therefore this person has some authority. Sometimes, though, the project manager in a weak matrix more has the role of a project expediter. Think of the project expediter as a staff assistant or a communications link. If we move to the balanced matrix, still the project manager is borrowing resources from the functional manager. Communication, reporting, very complex. In a balanced matrix, the project manager and the functional manager often are thought to have balanced power. If we move on to the strong matrix, again we see borrowed resources and complex communication. With the strong matrix, the project manager is often stronger, meaning they have more power or more authority than the functional manager. As we said before, the strong matrix has many characteristics similar to a projectized structure. In a projectized structure, the project manager often has full-time dedicated resources. Sometimes the projectized team is co-located, though not always. All of the resources on a projectized team report somehow to the project manager. Therefore, this is the structure where the project manager has most of the authority. In a projectized structure, one of the negatives, though, is the workers have no home. What we mean by this, when the project is over, there is no home for the workers or the project manager back in the organization. When I think of these structures, often I like to think about and look at the structures in the form of diagrams. Here we have a diagram of a functional organization. You can see project coordination occurs at the functional manager level, not at the level of the workers. If we move to a weak matrix, project coordination occurs here down at the staff level, though this structure still has many of the characteristics of the functional structure. Remember, if there is a project manager in a weak matrix, often they have the role of a project coordinator or a project expediter. The expediter can make no project decisions. The project manager can make some decisions because of how high up they report in the reporting structure. Here we see a balanced matrix. You can see the project manager. Project coordination occurs with the project manager at the staff level. When we move to a strong matrix, again, we can see the project coordination here. But notice the project manager, he's now reporting into a manager of project managers. When we move all the way to the projectized organization, we can see project coordination occurs under the project manager. The staff or the workers, they report directly into the project manager. Now we see a composite organization. A composite organization often will have one or more of the structures we've already described. You can see here we have project coordination for Project A in red, and here project coordination for Project B in green. The composite organization takes on characteristics of multiple structures at the same time. I hope you enjoyed this video on organizational structures.